Well, today I've got some free time and I've got to go to Home Depot and pick up some parts for a job tomorrow. So I thought I would do this podcast today on key identification. Now I try to keep these podcasts as short as I can, so under 10 minutes I'm going to teach you how to walk up to any business and tell what that key is, or I'll tell you how to find out what that key is that fits that lock. Do you remember when I talked to you, I think it's on the home page, we talked about how I got into the business that 1 year that I spent at that lock company? Those are the things that I wanted to know. I wanted to know what kind of key blanks guys keep on their truck. Well, in the back of the manual is a inventory tool and supply list in the back of your manual. Now you'd say, where did you come by that? Well, after so many years in the business, when I sat down and put the course together for a new guy, I thought to myself, okay, if I was going to set this van up for John or Austin, or, one of my sons, what would I put on that truck? Well, that's what's on that inventory tool and supply list that's in your manual. All of the key blanks that I have on my truck. Now, it brings me to the large key blanks, because the scenario that I'm going to present to you is, what the heck, gas? Really? Seriously? Right in the middle of a podcast? I gotta get gas, so I'll be right back. So I might do this podcast sitting in my truck because I want to show you this book if it comes out on video. So I'll be right back. I need to go get some gas. Whew. $32. I'll tell you what, I've always been anti-minivan. I know that this podcast is not about the vans, but as you guys know, I've always been very anti-minivan. I don't like minivans. But this van, actually I'm getting ready to do a podcast on the build out of this van. It's a brand new van, 32 miles to the gallon. The reason I didn't like the older minivans is they didn't have the engine that these new Fords have in it. This is a Transit Connect. It has 2 sliding doors, a lift up back, which is really nice, especially if you go to open a car and you need to get your car opening tools. They slide back is better than the doors that open, because that's not what this podcast is about, but I'm just sharing this with you, right? But anyways, this thing gets 32 miles to the gallon or 23 miles to the gallon in town. It cost me $32 just to fill this thing up. You get in the Ford or the Dodge, and whoa, man, that gas just goes whoop. But anyways, I'm going to talk to you today about key identification. And I want to show you this book, and then I'll go back and we'll talk about this key ring. I want to show you, this is Ilco's key guide. Remember, we're going to teach you how to do key identification within 10 minutes, right? This book right here, you say, where do you get this book? You can get this book from Clark Security. Once you are a locksmith, take our course, blah, 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 and you get an account with the Clark Security, they're going to verify that you're a locksmith or they won't give it to you, right? So this book you can get from them and they give them to you for free. But what I want to look at is Sargent, and I want to explain this chart to you. If you'll notice, I hope you can see this, I hope this video turns out. You notice these different keyways. This is a 6-pin or a 5-pin, a 6-pin, and a 7-pin. Notice the shape of the key. So if I had a key in my hand and it said Sargent on it, well, Sargent will have stamped on there what it is, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but it'll have it stamped on there. But it's any other key blank, and you knew that it was a Schlage or whatever it was, the way that you find out is you simply take the particular key blank, and you know that it's a Schlage because it says it on there. And well, Schlage actually even has their number stamped on it, so it's they're even easier. But to do key identification, you just hold it up to here. Now you can find these catalogs online. The problem with that is when you print it out, you don't really know, is that the exact size of this key whenever you hold the key this way and you hold it down like this to be able to see the shape of the key. So you know that that is a 1007 LDM, which doesn't mean anything to you, but it will in just a minute. But when you look at this chart, I'll have to explain to you why they did it this way, and then you'll understand why there's so many keyways. You start out here and it says this is an LA, LB, LC, LD, and it goes on through the alphabet all the way up to LL. But if you look at this, I hope this is coming out. If you look at this, The only difference, this is the keyway right there at the top of this page. You can see that right there. See that? Well, down here you notice that these all kind of join together. There's the master keyway that will pass all of these keys in this section right here. So in other words, if I was going to carry a key blank on my car, or in my van, would I carry just an LA keyway? Or would I carry an LD keyway? Well, if I carried an LD keyway, I would have all 4 of these on my truck, because it's still gonna go in, right? It'll still work. And then anyways, long story short, what I carry on this ring is an LA. Let me see, hang on a second. Let me actually get the key out so you can see it, right? This is an LA keyway, okay? What I keep on my truck is an LN and an RN. That is your master key for all of the Sargent series. Now, I don't like to use those key blanks specifically on a job, and all this is in the course. I don't like to use that type of a key blank, the master key, all the time, because it's really thin, so it'll pass all these different keyways. But you look at these charts and you think to yourself, why did Sargent do this? Well, here's the reason why. Back in the day before computers, when a guy did a 10-story or 30, picture a 20-story building, and each floor has about 200 locks on it. So you got 200, 200, 200, 200. What are the possibilities of you keying the 20th floor, suite 210, or whatever, 2010, to suite 105, accidentally, because you're doing this math by hand? What's the possibilities of you doing that? Is called cross keying. We talk about this in the master key section. So what Sargent did, knowing that that was a problem, they would do the first floor in an LA, they would do the second floor in an LB keyway, they would do it in an LC keyway, and then if they had floor masters, they would cut this key. Now keep in mind, remember, this key right here will go into each one of these. And that's the reason this system is set up the way it is. It helps them with master keying. Like I said, Clark Security, you can pick up this key guide. So there's no magic to this, right? Actually, to be honest with you, I don't even carry this book in my truck. You'd say, why? Well, because on the inventory tool and supply list, I have every single key blank that you're going to run into right here. So what I do when I walk up to a door, if I don't know what the key is, which I do now because I've been in the business for so long, I just stick these keys in there until I find, oh, that's what that is. So why one? Of course, I would have known that because I know that keyway. And this is for a new guy, right? But I just force a habit. Over the last 40 years, I still have this ring in my truck. I still use it. Not so much anymore. But that teaches you key identification in under 10 minutes. Not really. There's a lot more in here. We go more in depth in the course, in the program. But a situation that you would use that would be, let's say that you get, and I think I can start driving now because I need to get to Home Depot. Customer calls you and you get out there and you pick the door open, and you remember the podcast that I did on the HPC tap and die set. Watch that podcast because I show you an Adams Wright lock and the cylinder that goes in it. And I carry those on my truck. They're on that inventory tool and supply list. That particular lock is on 90% of the stores that you run into. So let's use that lock as an example for key identification. So I walk up to the door and I pick the door open, and the lady wants me to rekey it. So I go through my ring of keys and I don't have the key blank. It's just, I don't have it. Well, there's one or two reasons why. Really just probably one at this point, because that's a good ring. It's because it's a restricted keyway. Now, I'm not going to get into that, but I would take that ring and I would just start sticking those keys in there until I found the one that fit. And that's for you new guys that are in the business. So when you walk into a shop and you see millions of key blanks, I mean, when I had my shop, we had an entire wall full of key blanks. You'd say, why? People will bring weird stuff into you. they'll bring stuff into you that they went to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever the case might be, and they tried to find to have a key copied, and they couldn't find it. Well, then you would stand there and you would take your key guide, like I showed you, to hold the key up, just find out what it is. You'd look at the key. If it had some numbers on it, there's an index in the back of that book. If it's an ILCO key blank or an ESP key blank. But what happens in a shop is, over years of having a shop, what I would do is, on the counter, I kept a list where I ordered stuff every week. In other words, I knew what my inventory was and what I needed to buy. So if somebody brought in a key that I didn't have, I would go through the catalog until I found it, or found one that was extremely close. As far as the shape of the key, the head of the key, you can usually tell. All of that is in that book. Actually, if you get that ILCO key guide catalog and just read it, it explains to you how to search down a key. So when you walk into a shop, you see all these millions of keys. Well, you guys can't carry around 1 million keys in a van. And that's why this is all you need right here. The question that you want to know is, how much of each one of these key blanks do I buy? Do I need to buy 50 of one particular one, or can I get by with buying just 20? When I put the course together, I thought, like I said, if I was going to do this for one of my boys, what would I put on that van? That's exactly what's on that inventory tool and supply list. Everything from your key blanks, your large key blanks, to your file cabinet key blanks, to your cam locks. I mean, the list is extensive, but I did it in such a way to where it doesn't cost you that much money. In other words, don't buy 50 of this key blank. Why? Because you're not going to use them that often. And these supply houses, you can buy packets of 20. It's good, just have 20 on there. Then in your area, as you get out and begin to do jobs and run calls, what's going to happen is you're going to go, you know what, I used up those 20. Actually, I only have 2 left. Then buy a box of 50 of those, because you're going to see that there's a lot of those kind of locks in your area, because it depends geographically where you are. If you're in a big metropolitan area, you may have a completely different sergeant, may be very big in your area. If you live in Chicago or someplace like that, Russman and Corbin may be a very big one. You live in LA, I mean, LA's got just about everything on the planet, right? And so does Las Vegas, actually. So it depends geographically what key blanks you want to carry. But this is where you start. You start with a ring like this. Same with the file cabinets. To be able to find, you walk up to a file cabinet, they say, well, I want you to impression the key of this file cabinet, but you don't know what the key blank is. Well, you can't get your key catalog out. That's not going to help you. So I created the ring. That ring I still use to this day, especially when it comes to desks and file cabinets, because once China entered the market and things started to be made in Taiwan, you guys started getting these locks, the numbering systems, and I'm not going to go into code cutting because that's where we're headed, but the numbering systems on these locks are, many times there's no number on them at all. You're just looking in a dark hole and you don't know what key blank it is. We created actually the exact same ring like this, except, actually I think it's right here. Yeah, here it is. This ring right here. This is every file cabinet key that you have on your van. This goes in your impressioning kit. This video is on key identification. It isn't on impressioning. But you have this ring that you keep in your impressioning kit. So when you go into that office, you walk up to that file cabinet, you don't know what that key is, so you start sticking the key in there. Now here's a tip for you. Let's say she hands you a key, and you start looking on your key ring, and you go, oh man. You start looking on your key ring, and you go, I don't even have this key. I don't even have one that has a head like this key. Go up to the desk, right? Go up to the desk and take that ring that's off your inventory tool and supply list that comes with your course. Go up to that file cabinet and start sticking those keys in there until you find one that fits. And you will. That ring is extensive, believe me. Remember that first year? Those are the things that I wanted to learn my first year. You know, I'd go up to a guy's van, I'd go, what is that? What is that? Oh, that's a Sergeant LA? Well, what's an LN? And then he explained it to me. I mean, it just took a few minutes, right? Show you the book. I showed you just now. You've learned how to do key identification under 10 minutes. I hope it's been under 10 minutes. But anyways, I'm almost at Home Depot. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Today's my day off. I don't have to dress like a locksmith. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Or maybe at Home Depot.